Well, why don't we go ahead? We've got enough people. I think we can go ahead and kick it off. Are you good, Sacha?
I'm good. Let's just say to everybody, if you do have questions, obviously drop them in the comments, because this is a live. So we would love to prioritize answering live questions rather than pre-asked ones. Sacha is a librarian's nightmare. Bookshelves by color.
It's the prettiest bookshelf I've ever seen.
It really is.
I don't know how you do it.
Because
awesome.
I don't remember book titles, but I'm really visual, so I remember what's on a book. So this is actually a filing system for me, because I'm like, oh yeah, I need the book with the pink spine, but it's got, you know, like a sky view of a castle on it, which is the 4 behind me, if you're interested.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna have that level of dedication. I think everybody's just in awe of your bookshelf. That's one of the joys of like doing a video stream, so everybody can see it. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's do an official kickoff just for Howard's benefit, because this is going to go on the podcast. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the AskALLi Self-Publishing Advice and Inspirations podcast. We are doing this show live. This is a special quarterly show. I'm Michael Ronn, and I'm joined with Sacha Black. How are you, Sacha?
Hello. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I am fantastic. This is a special stream. You can't see it. It's hard to know when people are going to be listening to this in the future. So if you're listening or watching this in the future, we've got quite a few people who are joining in from both sides of the pond. We've got some people in Chicago and London and California and the Netherlands. So we're well attended, and we are here to answer your questions. So as we said before we started the kickoff, please ask your questions in the chat. We would be happy to answer them for you. That's one of the reasons we do this, is we do this quarterly, because normally this is a syndicated show. Sacha and I, we record this. We both are talking to a wall while we're talking to each other, and then it goes out onto the interwebs. But now we're here in front of all of you, and so we can answer your questions. So perfect. So just while we're waiting on questions, Sacha, I did get an anonymous question.
Oh,
that I think it's always kind of fun. We don't get anonymous questions very often, so
is it a juicy one?
It is a little juicy, just a tad. It's like you poke it with a knife, and just a little bit of juice comes out. And of course, it's regarding ISBNs.
Oh,
right. So this, it's not an episode of the AskALLi Q&A without ISBN questions. All right. So here is the question, and I'm stalling because I had to pull it up because my email just died. Okay, so here we go. When registering an ISBN in Bowker, authors have to provide the status and the price. Early on, I was selecting forthcoming for the status when I first registered the specific ISBN in advance of my book's launch, and I realized I never went back to change it to active. So like active record, although it doesn't seem to have caused any issues. Should I do that? Does that cause any problems? Is Nielsen kind of the same way? Or you can specify if the book is pre-order or not?
I don't know that it's the same at all when I just buy the ISBNs. I mean, there's Nielsen where you buy them, and then there's Nielsen title editor where you just upload your like metadata essentially for the book. But it's been a while since I have done that, so I need to go. Okay. I sort of do it like once a year rather than doing it every single time I launch.
Yeah. So I think that's probably fair. I don't know enough about Nielsen to answer this for folks across the pond, but for Bowker, when you buy your ISBN, they make you go to their dashboard, and that's where you can get the ISBN. And in order to register it to a title, you have to fill in all the metadata at that time. So you could do it like it as far in advance as you want, or you could, do it once a year or whatever, however you wanted to do it. But they make you choose whether the book is currently published or whether it's, forthcoming. My answer to the question is I don't think it matters. I've never heard anybody get a knock on their door at 2 a.m. and say, hey, why didn't you change the title of your book to active? I think just do it when you remember to do it. That's why what I do, I don't know if you do this, Sacha, but when I publish a book, the first thing I do is, I assign the ISBN as soon as possible. But then when I go to publish the book, I actually will go into the ISBN, double check everything, and then, mark it as an active record.
I mean, that sounds very good and comprehensive, and like something that somebody who's a professional publisher and indie author should be doing.
I just do it because I've made that mistake before, and like I've been one of those people who's scrambling at the last minute to get an ISBN assigned, and I just don't like it. So, but anyway, we have a second part of this question. Is there any need to keep the price listed for your ISBN up to date with changes in your price? What do you do?
I don't.
Nielsen require?
No, I don't. I just I probably am very terrible and not a good person to be asking this question of, because I just ignore it until PLR is due, and then when that is in the what's it called, like the period where you register the books, I then go into like the British Library, the PLR system, and Nielsen, and do it all at once. So literally do it once a year, and that's it.
So it sounds like there's a couple of different schools of thought represented between you and me, which is just do it whenever you remember, or do it once a year, or just do it whenever you. Honestly, I think if you just update it whenever you remember, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be going in and updating my ISBN price or the price of your book in the ISBN dashboard every week or every time you have a promotion. I don't think it's necessary. And how frequently do people run promotions on their print books?
Yeah.
Not very often. And I don't think it's necessary for ebooks as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that answers our anonymous.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had a question from Florence, which was, what do you think about blog tours? Are they still effective?
I think it depends. I personally, I don't know about you, Sasha, but I've never really gotten a whole lot of mileage out of blog tours.
No, I think all marketing is about visibility and traffic. And so, and this sort of answers Charles's question a little bit as well. But for me, marketing is purely about how many eyeballs can I get on my books. And I don't think that blogs are something that people go to as a go-to anymore. Even if they have, I mean, the few exceptions to that might be book places that are like, Book Riot, that are extremely well established. But ultimately, if you wanted to do a tour, and it would depend on your genre and the type of audience, but I would possibly be looking at more PR boxes than I would, like a website blog tour, because I just don't think it's got any mileage in it anymore at all. Whereas PR boxes, if they're going to send them to bookstagrammers, Instagrammers, and so they're asking about Substack as well, just to sort of add on to that. I don't know an awful lot about Substack, but if it's behind a paywall, I can't imagine that you're going to get, huge numbers of eyes on it if it's versus it not being behind a paywall. But as I say, I know nothing about Substack and how it works. I just know that some people have paid newsletters on there. So I'm not a good person to ask about that. But pound for pound, if you're going to ask me, look, I've got £500, how should I spend it? I would either look, first thing I would do is ask, where are my audience? Where are my readers spending time? If they're young adults, they're inside bookstores, if they're on TikTok or Snapchat or whatever the latest, social media thing is. So you could sweat equity most of your time there. And then the other £500, you could either do, a handful of PR boxes to the biggest Instagrammers or book talkers or whoever that are in that genre, and then potentially try and start doing some low-level AMS ads or start with Facebook ads. And because those are the things that are going to drive the most significant amount of traffic, and ultimately that is what is at the root of marketing, is how many eyeballs can I get on my book, and therefore how pound for pound, what is the best way to do that.
I think that's a good answer. All right, so that kind of segues into Charles's question, which I think you answered a lot of it, but we'll
I didn't answer I asked for clarity because it was so the question is, I'm converting from a part-time author to a full-time author, and I really need to step up the marketing and promotion. But what I asked to clarify was the genre, because that's such a broad question. I mean, you could, it's just too hard to answer. So just to give clarity, Charles writes across multiple genres and has 16 titles out and is earning very good money already on sci-fi, and slightly less but still very good money on fantasy, and not so much in the romance. And so the question is, I know romance is a huge market, thus dabbling there. So I mean, obviously I'm a romance writer, and I would say, again, it depends on your like subgenre in romance. So for example, if you're going to be writing like contemporary romance and the audience is like 60-year-olds, then Facebook ads, obviously. If your audience is, if you're writing dark romance, go to TikTok. It's the only place you should be. Historical paranormal romance, see, that's where I'm at, because I don't write historical and I don't read historical. Possibly, whenever anybody says historical, I always think slightly older audience. But if it's also paranormal, I mean, maybe that's like a what's that lady who wears the Victorian outfits? She wrote
Gail Carriger.
Gail Carriger.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Gail is like a comp author, and in which case, if she is, I would go and start stalking Gail and looking at what she's doing. Go and look at her Facebook page to see if she's running ads. Go and look at I would go and look at what she's doing. But in terms of like you know, stepping up your game, if with the amounts of money that you've already quoted earning, you already know what you're doing. You don't need us to tell you what to do. You just need to replicate the models that you have already been successfully doing. The only thing that I would say about romance is it is extremely popular on TikTok. TikTok is a wild and vicious beast in and of itself. So it is like starting from scratch. But there are an awful lot of romance readers on TikTok. So you know, I would think about it, especially if you've got paranormal in there, because fantasy is absolutely huge on TikTok. I mean, that's how I make my money. So, and I write fantasy romance. So, yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Victoria. Victoria says, I'm working on the second edition of one of my nonfiction books. I'm on track for it to be released in September of 2025. It's my biggest seller in a very niche market, so I can build on that and the attention I got 5 years ago. Is there anything different I should consider or be aware of in launching a second edition?
I would probably make sure that you, in the blurb, somewhere relatively near the top, you just make it very clear that it's a second edition, and maybe note how much has changed or like how much has been added. So I know, for example, when Joanna Penn released a second edition or third edition, she might even be on the fourth now, of How to Market a Book. She made it very, very clear how much had changed or how much had been added. And I think that helps people who may be inclined to buy the book again decide whether or not they want to do that. So that's probably, other than that, I would probably treat it like a new launch. So with nonfiction in particular, if there are like niche podcasts, I would probably go and look at potentially doing some of that. You know, if there are conferences where you can speak on the topic, I would try and get into those. You know, all of the stuff that nonfiction in a way is slightly easier to market than fiction. But and then the other thing is that really works as well, what worked for me was AMS ads for nonfiction. They always worked really, really well for me.
Oh, I agree. And you know, I would cover your bases. So make sure you put up front in your book description about what has changed.
Yeah.
Make sure it's on. Also, make sure you, when you send out your newsletter, that you explain what has changed. And then what I would also do is in your foreword or in your introduction, I would very clearly call out what has changed, and I would put in bullet points. So that way, if you have readers who have already bought the book and they're on the fence, should I check it out? They can click the look inside button or the preview button, and they can see right then and there what has changed. So Victoria says, the second edition will be 50% bigger and more up to date. So
I would definitely treat it as
call
new.
that out. Yeah, definitely. And don't forget, I would consider a new ISBN if you've got bigger book as well.
I think they have to after about 10%, don't they?
I think it's greater than 10%. Yeah. You're required to. I don't know if I don't know if there's any police that come knock on your door at 2:00 in the morning and say, why didn't you update your ISBN? But as a general rule of thumb, you should do that. Okay. Florence asks, what is a PR box?
Oh, publicity, essentially. So when you see these BookTokers that get boxes and boxes of book deliveries every week and they unbox them on social media, it will have things like, it will be a nice box. It will have like nice scrunchy squaggles, I don't know what to call them, in there. It will have the book. It might have an art print. It might have a bookmark. Some people go, and do lots of things like candles that are relevant to the thing, or they have some kind of merchandise in there. You don't have to do all of those things. You can just send the book. But essentially a PR box is a way to schmooze BookTokers and Instagrammers who have huge followings into getting them to display your book on their feed, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, make it pretty, make it attractive.
Yeah.
Make it fun to do an unboxing on, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is from Chad. I'm about to record my first audiobook for ACX. I put together a home recording area and have been studying. What mistakes do you see first-timers make?
Well, I have recorded 3 audiobooks, so I can answer this question. So underestimating how much your mic will pick up. So for example, in post, when I was editing, I would often hear an aeroplane, and sometimes it was just too hard to cut it out, and I had to go back into the booth to re-record like the pickups. So that's one thing. The second thing is underestimating how much your mic will pick up in terms of bodily sounds and like stomach growling. Make sure you eat about an hour before you go into the booth. Underestimating how long you can record for. I tapped out at about 2 hours, and I have a lot of training in voice work, but obviously it's not my full-time job. Like, your voice box is actually a muscle, and it will tire, especially when you are essentially doing a performance. The other thing is, I personally think you shouldn't straight read, and you should perform the content, which makes it more exhausting. The other thing is being careful what food substances and liquids you put into your body. So don't do anything too milky or too much dairy, because it can make your mouth quite claggy. Make sure you hydrate the night before as well as the morning of, when you are recording. And then the other mistake that I made was this is sort of a complicated one to explain, but when you're in the booth and you make a mistake, do make some loud sound, whether it's a raspberry, a clap, or a click, because what it does is it spikes the audio and makes it a lot easier for you to then find the mistake. The other thing is, go back to a full stop and don't just re-record the word that you messed up. Go back to a full stop, because then the whole thing will flow, rather than you trying to piece together like 2 words that are separating like a clause in a sentence or something. And then the other one is to start with your mouth open. It is a really interesting one, but like, you can end up popping P's and strange letters and sounds, but also breathe, hold, then start. So just like hold your breath for a second, because if you do fluff up and you do want to do the shortcut and piece 2 things together, having that hold before you start will enable you to cut and snip the sentences together. So that's a whistle stop on suggestions.
Yeah. I've recorded my own audiobooks too, and I agree with everything you said. What I would also add to that is, just please, for whatever, just take my advice. Don't record an audiobook with a condenser mic. So there are 2 types of microphones. There is a condenser mic, which picks up everything, all the bodily sounds that Sacha referenced. It'll even pick up, your neighbor's thoughts next door. Like, worst choice you could make for audiobooks. Now, some people can do it. The condensers that's great, but it's better to do a dynamic microphone. If you don't know what those are, just look into them. But I recorded my first audiobook on a condenser mic, and I really wished I hadn't. So you'll automatically cut out all those noises that Sasha talked about if you do a dynamic mic. That's my advice. And then I would also say, just get your audio engineering right. So there's a tool, most people are probably aware of it. It's called Audacity. That you can download a plugin for Audacity. It's a free app that you can use to record audiobooks. I don't recommend recording your audiobooks in Audacity, but there's a plugin and it's called ACX Check. And what it will do is it will actually check your audio, and it will tell you if your levels are right. It'll tell you if the tops and the tails at the beginning and the end of the audio is right. All that stuff sounds minor, but you want to get that right from the get-go, as opposed to having to go back and change it.
So I actually pay somebody to sort that out for me, because it's for somebody who knows what they're doing. They often have their levels preset. So you pay them a lower amount of money to just make sure it's ACX ready. So that is what I used to do. I would do the donkey work of recording, editing, all the pickups, making sure. And the other thing I paid them to do was I did a pre-record and sent them like 2 minutes of audio, which they then checked to make sure I had kind of like the right quality and stuff for it. So that's really useful. If you want to save yourself the bulk of the money, but you don't mind, spending $100 to have it polished and ready, and for somebody else's problem to sort out the mastering, then and for the people that do it complete DIY, that's a choice. Audio Cupcake is another tool that I've heard people use to be able to run your audio through, and it'll kind of clean things up for you. But in order to do that, in order to even put yourself in that position, you still have to have good audio and good levels from the beginning, because garbage in, garbage out, right? So it all starts with you. So whether you farm it out or whether you do it DIY, you've really got to make sure the audio is pleasant, and just make sure it's pleasant to listen to in earbuds. You're going to be in people's ears, and they don't want to hear you cracking your gums or that sort of thing. They don't want to hear all those mouth pops. No, but that's actually a really good point, is to edit with headphones on, not having it playing out of your speaker.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's amazing what you can hear when you edit with headphones on. Yeah, like it's like a night and day difference. Yeah, and you can hear the airplane. Like there's times where there's been an airplane going on, but you can't hear it coming out of your speakers, but you can hear it with the earbuds. So yeah, good luck to you, Chad. It's hats off to you for recording your own audiobook. That is it's not for the faint of heart, and you will learn 1,000 more lessons with your first book, and that just take those lessons, consider them tuition, and your next book will be even better.
Yeah, I halved the amount of time it took me between book 1 and book 2.
Yeah, once you get going, it's awesome, and you save a ton of money. But you got to be willing to do it, and it's definitely an acquired taste. It's not for everybody. Okay, next question is from Michelle. I'm interested to know if there are pitfalls I need to be aware of in terms of pre-sales or pre-orders. I'm aiming to publish wide at the end of October, but realize that pre-sales would be advantageous, but I hear they can be fraught with difficulties.
I think we often hear from the really loud voices, like, the one scare horror thing where a file got uploaded wrong and it went out and all the rest of it. I think the one thing you have to be aware of is that files do lock if you're doing a pre-sale. So it actually depends. Each store has a different number of days before the launch, at which point it will lock the files. So that is one really big thing. You do have to go and check the terms and conditions and see how many days prior the files lock, because it isn't the same. It's roughly 4 days on Amazon, I think, maybe just 3.5, can't quite remember. But once they lock, you cannot change them. So it is always worth doing a last final check in the sort of digital proof area to make sure you did upload the correct file. Ask me how I know. So some of us have learned that the hard way. The other thing that I would say, the only big downfall, I think there are two. The first one is that depending which store you're getting the pre-orders, some stores that are not Amazon will count the pre-order sale twice, not monetarily, but in terms of like the algorithm boost that you'll get. So like Apple and places like that will count the sale on the day that it is pre-ordered, and then again on launch day. You don't get that on Amazon. So essentially, if you're wanting like a really big rank boost, then pre-orders are not the best method for that on Amazon, unless you're pulling huge numbers of orders. If you want bank money in the bank, then pre-orders are obviously great, because you are essentially halving your marketing by putting the pre-order link to book 2 or book 3 or whatever in the back of the book you've just launched. And that's where readers are hottest in terms of like their, you know, appreciation for you, so where they're most likely to pre-order the next one. I can't really think of any other disadvantages.
Well, there is one big I mean, I think you kind of alluded to it, but you know, they lock the files down. You have to get, you know, on Amazon in particular, you have to get your files submitted.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you can lose access to pre-orders if you don't.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, losing access to pre-orders. Yeah. So if you miss, even if it's not a file upload, if you are going to miss your pre-order deadline, and you know, you get one chance with Amazon. So if you ask for an extension, you can extend it for up to a month. If you then still can't hit the deadline, they will take your pre-order privileges away for a year. They were a little bit more lax in COVID, but that they are tightening back on that. You have to have a really hitting it for them to keep your pre-order privileges.
Yeah. And Sasha, I think your mic switched.
Oh.
Not sure what happened.
Nope.
Yeah, you sounded real. You were fine, and then at the end, you kind of went tinny a little bit.
That's weird. It's saying it's on my Yeti mic.
Okay.
Do I still sound tinny?
Now you sound good. Now you sound good.
Weird.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I was going to say, yeah, if you're going to be late on your pre-order with Amazon, you better have a note from either your doctor, or your priest, or a funeral home, because otherwise they're not. They take that very seriously. So don't mess around with that. Like I would not do pre-orders on Amazon unless you know without a doubt, like you got the cover on lock, you got the editing all done. Like, don't play around with that, because you know it's a bad experience for the readers. Right? I mean, they pay for a book and then it's not available and makes you look bad. Readers don't like it. Retailers don't like it either.
One thing that I will add is the reverse is not true. So if you put a really long pre-order up and then you bring it early, Amazon loves you for that. They won't mind at all, and neither will readers. So that is what I do. I kind of publicize to my readers never to trust my pre-order dates until I announce it publicly on social media. So I just chuck it up like a year in advance, and then I bring it right the way forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Deliver early. That's you can never go wrong when you sing that song. I'm not a big pre-order guy. I find that my readers just like to buy things now. Like when I get an email from my favorite writer, like I just want to buy the book now, you know, because if I click the pre-order button, then I'm not going to remember that I bought it. And, you know, are they going to get the email from the retailer that says the book is live, you know, that sort of thing. So there's no right or wrong way to do it.
I love pre-orders, but I get a lot of them. So
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I don't get pre-orders. I just like the spike on the day of.
I like the money in the bank.
Yeah.
I like the guaranteed income.
Yeah. Tomato. I mean, I just want people to read the book as soon as possible, right? And then that leads to the reviews, and so it's tomato. I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's a wrong answer.
No.
Money. We all agree money in the bank is a good thing.
Yes.
And I think we all agree that people have very, very short attention spans. So your mileage may vary.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Jody, Jody's making a comment, but I'm going to turn your comment into a question, Jody, just to think it'll be helpful. I had the audiobook for my first book narrated and produced by Canopy Audiobooks, an ALLi partner member, for £180 per finished hour, which I found quite reasonable. So here's the question that I'm going to take, Jody, and I'm going to take your question. What is a reasonable per finished hour that an author should expect to pay if you're going to produce an audiobook?
I think they say $200 per finished hour, I think is what they say.
Yeah.
But I think that is on the low end when you look at...
On the low side.
Yeah, that is on the low side, I would say. Podium do my audiobooks, and I've never worked one-on-one with a narrator, so I can't actually give personal testimony to that. But I think that is low.
It's not low. It's just, that's the thing with audiobook narrators is that, you know, ultimately you want to find somebody that's going to do a great job, right? And somebody that's going to do a great job, you're less likely to find them for under $200 per finished hour, which I think, do the conversion to pounds and you get roughly that amount. Either way, I mean, at the end of the day, you want a narrator that's going to, like I said, do a good job. But if you're not getting a heavy hitter narrator, you kind of have to figure out if that's worth it to you. I don't recommend that authors do audio, and unless it's a true passion project for you and you want to see it in audio no matter what, or your ebooks are selling well enough to fund the audio, because it could be expensive. You'll bankrupt yourself making audiobooks, especially when you have as many as I have. So you have to be strategic. Okay, next question is from Michelle. I've been approached by a company, ALLi partner member, who have offered to distribute my audiobook to be recorded this October. I was going to do it myself, but they have said it will go into 74 stores. Is it realistic? Sounds like a crazy number.
It just sounds like an aggregator.
Yeah, sounds like an aggregator. So, I think it ultimately, Michelle, it depends. I've done some agreements with audiobook aggregators. I think it ultimately depends on what does the licensing look like, right? So what specifically are you giving to them? What sort of promises are they making? What sort of marketing are they going to do? Is the marketing going to be on you? Compare the markets to where they can get into compared to what you can get into. Just ask as many questions as you can, and just make the best decision that you can. And also, ask how long are they going to get the license, right? So I've seen some audio places they'll take your book for several years. Some people will only do it for 1 year, that sort of thing. So it's all things to think about. But 74, that number is that's pretty high. I mean, it's certainly a decent number of places to sell audiobooks. So sounds like that's a pretty good distribution platform. Okay. And next question. Actually, I've got a question on reserve so Sacha and I recorded an episode earlier this week, and there was a question we did not have a chance to get to. So this question is from member Floyd. I have my first book ready for production and distribution. Is there a set of guidelines to follow in getting the book to market? What steps would you follow, and just your first two or three steps, Sacha, in getting your book published?
Well, what are we assuming they've done? Have they formatted it?
It's formatted. It's ready to go.
Okay.
It's ready. So they just have to upload it and go.
Okay. So this might sound like stepping back to step forward, but in this day and age, I would not publish a book one without a reader magnet. So actually, for me, genuinely, I would pause publishing until I had written either some kind of short story, a prequel, or some kind of something that I can use in order to gather people onto my mailing list at the back of my book. And so then the second thing, if I hadn't set up a mailing list, then I would set up a mailing list with a short autoresponder sequence. After that, I would then start looking for advanced readers, trying to find some places I can give copies of my book away to people who read in my genre and are likely to enjoy it. I would look on Facebook groups. I would look, I'd start in Facebook groups. I'd potentially look at some like review companies, places like NetGalley, other reputable ones like NetGalley. I always find the reviewers a little bit harsh on NetGalley, but it is what it is. It is a place, and I do find it a little bit expensive personally, but places like that, I would look to see if there are any other authors in my genre who might be willing to share the news of my launch, or even share the reader magnet, because it's a freebie for their readers. I think that's probably the first few steps that I feel are the most sensible, maybe the most unexpected, because people are like, publish it and then blah blah blah, but actually I think those are the most strategic steps.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to get their book published right away, right? But taking the steps, stepping back and getting your reader magnet set up, making sure you've got a good website, all that I think is important. So Michelle asked a follow-up question on the audiobook distribution. So if I distribute my audiobook myself through ACX and Findaway Voices, will this cover most audio stores? The answer is yes. Yeah. Other than, I don't know if Findaway distributes to Google Play or not. I don't know if they do. That might be one place you may want to go to direct. But outside of that, I think Findaway goes to just about everywhere. I can't think of any major audiobook place. I mean, the only other place that you would want to distribute is on your website, right? So you would definitely want to sell books on your website if you've got a Shopify store or PayHip or Gumroad or whatever that looks like. Okay, next question is from Kelly. Bookmarks. Should I have a QR code on my bookmarks? And should I use both sides of my business card or bookmark? What do you think?
Definitely use both sides. I feel like it's a waste not to. Obviously, it makes it a fraction more expensive. I tend to put character art on one side and then the QR code and any other relevant information or quote as well, sometimes on the back side of the bookmark. They also ask, are they replacing business cards? And I think it's very contextual. Like for readers, readers of fiction, yes, definitely don't do business cards for readers. Non-fiction, I think it's, I think a bit of both, maybe. It's a hard one, that one.
I've always found bookmarks to be kind of goofy. Like
really?
if I'm at, well, not to do, but like when I'm getting a bunch of business cards at a conference and then somebody gives me a bookmark, I don't know, it just, something about it feels weird to me.
I think peer to peer, like business owner to business owner, I think it should be a business card.
I agree.
But if it's author to reader, it should be a bookmark.
Yeah, because a bookmark it has a lot of utility. So I, if you can get a QR code on there, like you alluded to, I think that's not a bad idea either, right? And give readers a couple of them, so that way if they can give them out or they can do with them what they will. But yeah, I definitely use both sides. Now on a business card, I used to be a both sides business card person, and then somebody made a really convincing argument not to do that, to keep one side of the business card blank so that people can write down notes if they want to. So
I take selfies because I don't remember names, but I do remember faces.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, with the business card.
Do that.
Selfie with the business card, because I just can't do names. I will forget your name. Sorry, but I will.
Yeah.
I won't forget your face though. So that's why I do that.
It's a good idea. Yeah. I see. I'm the opposite. I don't forget name. I have like a really, really good way to remember names, but
oh, cool.
Yeah. But I'm, but yeah. So yeah, however you want to do it. But I like, when I do my next business cards, I think I'm gonna put like some lines or something on the back, and that way people can remember, or people know that they can write something on the back of it. just because I just wish I hadn't printed like 1,000 business cards before I figured that out. So now I got to give all these business cards out. But anyway, that's a good problem to have, I guess. Okay, next question is from Josh, and we're coming down to our 5-minute warning here, everybody. So get your questions in. I have a 1,500 word count prologue to my book that I pulled out of my main novel because one of my beta readers felt that it didn't contribute much to the story and introduced too many characters too fast. Would you recommend putting together a free teaser book of this, or just list it as bonus material on my website?
If somebody has said it hasn't contributed much, then it may not be the right type of material to entice people in. So it would depend what you're doing with it. If you are trying to get either people onto your mailing list or to encourage them to buy the book, then I would do a really hooky prequel that is a complete story but has a hook at the end of it, because it's essentially an advert for your main novel, and therefore you want people to love it and be saying wonderful things about it, not that it hadn't contributed much to the story, so that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, so I have a bit, it could be considered a contrarian opinion, and I think it depends on the context, right? So 1,500 words is not a lot of words. It's not a lot of words. In fact, I just read a Clive Cussler novel, and his prologue was like 1,500 words. So it's not a lot, not very long. And you mentioned in your comment, Josh, that one of your beta readers said that. I would be curious if other beta readers feel that way, right? So is it one person that's saying this, or is it multiple people that's saying it? Just something to think about. I mean, obviously, there's something to be said about starting your novel right when it needs to start. I'm not saying it needs to be fluffy, but
the other thing that I'm thinking here, rather than wasting the 1,500 words, you could pay a developmental editor to have a look, because 1,500 words is not going to cost you very much money, even for a story editor to look at it and say, okay, this is really catchy, or this is how you could make this catchy and hooky. So you might spend 50 quid, but to get a really solid story hook that you can use to encourage people onto your mailing list.
Yeah. So the comment he got was that it introduced too many characters too fast.
Okay, so strip some out.
Yeah,
that's a nice and easy one, isn't it?
Yeah. Listen, I'm just a fan of staying true to your artistic vision.
Yeah.
Everybody has opinions, and we could talk all sorts of things about opinions. And if it's just one person, I take that less than if it's like 10 people saying, there's an issue. So, yeah, I think, Sacha, you give good advice. Josh, ask more of your beta readers what they think, and I think that'll lead you to the right answer. Okay. Next question. Let's see. From Florence. I will be re-releasing books I self-published many years ago. They're all standalones. How often should I put the books out?
As often as you can energetically tolerate it.
Yes.
It's probably the right answer, right? Because there's no right or wrong answer. The only caveat I would give to that is, however fast you release them, you are setting an expectation. So don't release them so fast that you can't then maintain that pace. So if that's one every 6 months, great. If it's one every 4 months, fantastic. If it's one every year, great. And also financially, because launching a book can be expensive. So just there is no right or wrong answer.
Exactly. Okay, so we're gonna have to shut the doors, folks. Final question is from Zoe. I'm close to publishing an adventure memoir. What are your thoughts on including photographs? How costly is it to add them, or is it better to add a link to a dedicated web page where they can view the photos?
I think
she's doing an ebook and paperback.
Yeah, I think Joanna Penn's a great example of this. Like, she's doing photographs in her fiction books at the moment. She is doing special editions, and they are Kickstarters. But what I would say is that if you use an organization like Book Vault, they charge you per page rather than changing the whole book to color and therefore being charged a really, really high price for every page being color, when actually you might only have 4 images in it. So I don't think it's costly if you use the right printing company.
I agree. I think your bigger consideration is just making sure that the images look nice in the ebook and the paperback, because I've seen books where the images aren't formatted properly and they look terrible. So if you can, you know, I would, everything Sacha said, but also just make sure that you get your formatting right and you test everything out.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, hey, that is another Q&A session on the books. Thank you all so much for your questions. We will be back next quarter. It'll be our final one of the year. We don't have the date set just yet, but be sure to stay tuned in the Self-Publishing Member Connect, and we'll announce that when it's ready. So for those who aren't aware, we do have a podcast. It is it's the first week of every month on our ALLi podcast network. So be sure to subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Bye.